Hello everyone. This is a question I get asked a lot. I've been playing competitive Pokemon for nearly 10 years, and I've been a tutor for the past couple years. Hundreds of new or inexperienced players have sent me teams to review and rate. Some of them are decent, but most of them are terrible. Some of these teams I suggest improvements and changes, but often the team is so unsalvageably bad that I'll direct the builder to play some established, successful teams built by pros until they get a better grasp on the metagame. So the question I'm answering is, should new players try to team build? The answer is obviously, it depends, so let's make this question a bit more specific. If I'm a new player and my goal is to get better at competitive Pokemon as quickly as possible, should I build my own teams for my ladder and tournament play? I also want to clarify what I mean by new player. For the sake of this video, a new player is just anyone who's in the bottom 30% or so of the ladder and doesn't have a good grasp on the metagame. So technically people that are veterans but maybe took a long break from the game, or people that have been playing a while but just not that frequently, could still classify as new players in this video. I know that's not strictly accurate, but I'm using this term because the vast majority of the people asking me this question are completely new to competitive Pokemon. For examples in this video, I'll be referencing the main singles competitive format, Scarlet and Violet Overused, or SVOU, since it's the format I know best, but the ideas I discuss in this video apply to doubles and VGC as well. And for background footage, it felt appropriate to farm low ladder while laddering up a new account, so you can enjoy seeing all the wacky teams I face. I should clarify that this video is an opinion. An informed opinion, but still an opinion. Nobody has done a study with hundreds of new Pokemon players, assigned some to build their own teams and others to use established ones, and observed their progress, so there is no scientific answer. However, as someone who has had over 100 tutoring clients, most of which are newer players, I think I'm very qualified to answer this question. So let's get into it. If I'm a new player and my goal is to get better at competitive Pokemon as quickly as possible, should I build my own teams? Let's look at both sides of this argument, starting with the pro team building side. There are a lot of reasons you should team build. The most obvious is that when you do something, you tend to get better at it. Part of getting better at competitive Pokemon is being a better team builder, and the more you team build, the better you'll be at team building. This is simple and absolutely true. Some would also make the argument that many of the best players in the world also build their own teams. This is true in singles and in VGC. Almost every top player is a great builder as well. That correlation is a strong argument to encourage everyone to team build. Many also claim that building a team makes you better at using it. I agree with this. When you build a team, you have a deep understanding of how it's supposed to function. You can also make your teams to suit your preferences. For example, I hate teams that rely heavily on prediction or low accuracy moves. I love teams with reliable priority and lots of pivoting moves. You can build teams to suit your preferences and unique playstyle. So, with all that, why would a new player not want to team build? Well, there's a solid argument for that as well. New players have a ton of information to learn when they start playing competitive Pokemon. Even if they already play competitive, they may be starting a new format. With this comes learning new abilities, speed tiers, moves, common sets, deeply internalizing the type chart. There's so much to know, and it takes hundreds or thousands of games to learn it. But it's not just raw data they need to learn, it's also battling skills, like whether to predict or make a middle ground play, the importance of entry hazards, when and how to position sweepers, when to play aggressively and when to play defensively. A big part of how you learn those battling skills is reinforcement training. When your opponent destroys you, you probably did something wrong. If your opponent is using a hazard stack team and whittles away your entire team slowly, you might say, "Wow, that seems impossible to beat, what could I have done here?" Then you look at your team and see a great Tusk, see Rapid Spin, and say, "Oh, that's what that weak move does. Maybe I shouldn't have let my great Tusk die to Hydro Pump from that Keldeo." Reinforcement training can also be positive. If you sweep your opponent with a Belly Drum Azumarill, you'll probably notice that you brought it onto the field at a good time, such as against an Alomomola that couldn't do much damage to you and allowed you to Belly Drum freely. And so, you'll learn that it's generally good to take setup opportunities against passive Pokemon. But then in another game, you'll set up your Azumarill on an Alomomola only to get walled completely by a Dondozo. So you'll learn what Unaware does, and that there's no point in using Belly Drum or setting anything up until the Dondozo is dead or significantly weakened. Reinforcement training is a huge part of learning the game. But you might be asking, well, Pinkacross, sure, that makes sense, but what does this have to do with team building? Well, let's look at these scenarios again. What if, when you faced that Hazard Stack team, you had no Great Tusk, no removal at all, and let's say no heavy-duty boots either? You could play that game absolutely perfectly and still lose. Facing Hazard Stack without removal or heavy-duty boots is a nearly unwinnable matchup. So there goes the reinforcement training. Maybe you played amazing, maybe you played terribly. Either way, you'll get destroyed. This applies to the Azumarill example as well. What if instead of Azumarill you had a Poliwrath? Poliwrath doesn't have Aqua Jet, the priority move that makes Azumarill such a threatening sweeper. You could position your Poliwrath absolutely perfectly, give it every advantage to sweep, click that Belly Drum, and still, very often, it just won't sweep, because it's a Poliwrath. So once again, that reinforcement training is destroyed. Poliwrath will hardly ever do what you hope, no matter how well you play it. Bad teams make reinforcement training much less effective. And as someone who has raided hundreds of new players' teams, trust me when I say they tend to make very bad teams. Every time you lose, you have to ask yourself if it was your fault or your team's fault. If you're using a team that was successful at a top level and losing in low ladder, the answer is simple. It's your fault. But if you're using a team with Kilowattrel and Lurantis in OU, well, even I would struggle heavily in low ladder with some of the teams people have sent me. Furthermore, the wacky teams new players tend to build are so unique that there are often no good examples for them to emulate. There are tens of thousands of replays of top-level tournament games, but the players are using decent meta teams, not Kilowattrel and Lurantis teams. Even new players that build teams using only OU Pokemon often struggle to draw meaningful comparisons between top-level teams and their own, due to how poorly structured they tend to be. I've seen plenty of teams from new players that do just use OU Pokemon, but they lack resistances to common threatening types, have no entry hazards, no removal, or just use terrible sets on the great Pokemon. So, now you've heard the reasoning for and against new players building teams. On the pro building side, team building is a skill that develops the more you do it. You can build a team to suit your own playstyle, and all the best players are great builders as well. On the anti-building side, if you use bad teams you built yourself, it will muddle reinforcement training, and it will be difficult to learn from top-level play since their teams will be so different from yours. We are now ready to answer the question. If I'm a new player and my goal is to get better at competitive Pokemon as quickly as possible, should I build my own teams? I would say no. This is for a few reasons. The main reason is, as I said, that it destroys reinforcement training. It makes it difficult to see what's your fault and what's the fault of the team. But also, something that was listed as an advantage earlier, that you can build teams that suit your playstyle, this can be bad in the hands of a new player. It's important for new players to try out many different team archetypes, strategies, and Pokemon. I've seen many new players claim to use Pokemon that suit their playstyle, when in reality they're just using whatever is easiest to play and most forgiving of mistakes. This most commonly manifests in new players exclusively playing the Hyper Offense archetype, which is typically comprised of a dedicated lead and several sweepers. It can manifest in other ways though, such as only playing Stall, or just using Pokemon that don't take a lot of thought and tend to click the same moves over and over, such as Ogerpon Wellspring clicking Ivy Cudgel. So, to summarize, when new players build and use their own teams, the teams tend to be terrible, which makes learning the game more difficult. They also tend to fall into habits with their team building and not branch out. Competitive Pokemon is an insanely complicated and difficult game. Don't make things harder on yourself by subjecting yourself to your teams. Even if you don't care about your battling skills at all and team building is the only aspect of the game you care about, I'd still recommend using top level teams built by pros before you build your own. Now, a little bit of building and experimenting is a good idea. Most of your practice should be with teams that you know are good, but there's no harm and some good in testing out your own ideas a little bit. I'd recommend that new players use a few top-level teams of different archetypes. Not too many, I'd say around 3 to 4 teams at a time is a good idea, and you can cycle them out as they become outdated. Learning how a particular team plays is important, so you don't want to bounce between teams like a pinball, but playing only one team can limit your scope. That's why I advise 3 to 4. So where do you find these top-level teams? There are a lot of places. I'll link in the description the Smogon SVOU Rate My Team forum, where people post their teams and you can pick out teams that reached impressive rankings on the ladder. There are also sample teams, which I'll link as well, which are especially made for new players. Many formats on Smogon have sample teams, not just OU. Smogon has VGC sample teams. Another great place to find good teams is just copying them from recent top-level tournaments. This is especially easy in VGC thanks to open team sheets. In the Pokemon community, copying teams isn't seen as stealing. It's encouraged and seen as healthy for the metagame and flattering to the builder. Once you see a team on the ladder or in a tournament, it's public and you can do with it whatever you wish. As long as you don't claim to have built the team yourself, absolutely nobody will have a problem with you copying teams. It's a very common practice. So when should you start building? Some people hate using the teams that others built. I certainly do. So at what point can you ditch the sample teams and start building your own teams for the majority of your play? Whenever you can tell the difference between a battle or scenario going poorly due to your playing or going poorly due to your team, that's when you should start building for yourself, because that's when reinforcement training will work even if the team is bad. Note that I said that's when you should start building for yourself, not when you can start building for yourself. Being a great builder does make you a better battler and has all the other advantages we mentioned before. If your goal is to become the most formidable competitive Pokemon player possible, that journey should involve team building and battling. Before I end this video, there's one more thing I want to clarify. This video is advice for people that are trying to become better players as quickly as possible. That is not everyone's goal. When I was a new player, I built a lot of my own teams. Did this slow my progress? Probably, but I had a lot of fun with it. Team building was what I loved, and using sample teams just wouldn't have been as fun for me. I didn't care about grinding my way to the top of the ladder, and maybe you don't either. If you just started playing competitive Pokemon yesterday and team building is what you love, go team build. My professional opinion is that it will slow your progress as a player, but the whole point of this game is to have fun. If you guys liked the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions as I try to respond to every comment. Also, if you're watching this video and you're not a new player, let me know if you started off building your own teams or using samples and established ones. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time.